Hi beauties, welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time here. I am just always so happy to see you. I want to talk about eyeshadow today. I can't pass up an opportunity to talk about eyeshadow. And I came across, I actually watched this video when she originally posted it. It has to be a couple of months ago at this point, but Alejandra Lisette is the one who kind of originated this tag, I guess is called. I don't really know what to call it, but basically she came up with about 10 different categories of palettes, and she just listed her favorite 3 in each category. So I'm just going to do the rundown. There's one category that she had which I'm not going to include. One of her categories was like your favorite large palettes. And I don't really have that many large palettes. Y'all, my dog is snoring so loud. So sorry if you can hear that. So I just left that off, and instead I added small palettes. So, which I don't think was on her original list. But anyway, I will of course leave her video linked below. Go check it out. She is really big into project panning, which is kind of like a whole community here on YouTube and Instagram that I'm not really that into. Like, I'm not a big project panner, but there is a huge audience for it. People love it. I can certainly understand why. But anyway, just go check her out. She does lots of other content too. She, of course, obviously loves eyeshadow, but let's just get into it. The first category off the bat are your top 3 indie palettes. So this was so fun. This sort of like in the last year and a half, I have really been into more indie brands. I've been wanting to try a lot more from indie brands. There just is a lot of like really unique stuff that they come out with. And just off the bat, the top 3 that I could think of that I really, really enjoy are, number 1, and these are not like in any order, okay? Within the 3, these are not ranked, but my Give Me Glow Vintage Rose palette. This palette is just stunning. It's so stunning. This was in my Shop My Stash, I think a couple rotations ago, and I had a blast using it. I mean, all of these tones work really well together. I mean, you can make an absolutely beautiful like green smoky eye, something sultry with like this this thorn shade here. And Give Me Glow metallics are just, if you've never like felt them or swatched them or seen them, there's all kinds of videos where people swatch all their Give Me Glow shadows. Go and watch one, because they are just gorgeous, and they are so intensely pigmented. Like, that's that thorn shade. It's just gorgeous. Like, it is the most gorgeous, like olive green. Copper Rose is one of my favorites. You know, I'm an absolute sucker for rose gold, but yeah, this is just gorgeous. I think this is actually the Give Me Glow palette that I wanted for the longest time, but every time I went to buy it, it was sold out. So I actually got the Vivid Rose palette first, and then I got this one. But lovely, lovely formula. Next is my Midas Cosmetics and Smoky Glow palette. Midas is a brand that I've tried just a couple things from. I actually decluttered their Flower Bomb palette earlier this year. That palette is atrocious. It's so bad. I don't even know how this palette is made by the same company, if I'm being honest with you. Like, the Flower Bomb palette was so bad, you guys. Don't get me started. But this is gorgeous. Like, I love this palette so much. It is like quite bright. Like you do have some really punchy, like poppy colors here, purples and corals and pinks, but it just works. Like something about it works. These tones work with the neutrals. The shimmers in here are gorgeous. Like the neutral looks you can get out of this are gorgeous. Like I just really find this palette to be super versatile. And again, like the formula of this is wonderful. The mattes and the shimmers. So love this. And my last absolute favorite indie palette is my Sydney Grace and Mel Thompson Tiny Marvels palette. This palette is constantly making like ranking videos on my channel, just constantly. And it's because it's so good. It's so good. I know I have mentioned before how amazing this formula is. If you don't like have a lot of color and you wanted to play with color, this is a pretty safe way to do that. I mean, you do have quite a bit of color in here, but it's not like too bright or intimidating. And you can build these colors really well. Like you're not gonna go in with this purple and have it be just like totally extremely pigmented in your face. Like you can build it up if that's what you want. Otherwise you can leave it super subtle and pastel. But Sydney Grace formula is just so good. Like I know I've said it before, it's so easy to work with. The mattes and the shimmers, the mattes blend with little to no effort. I personally find these mattes easier to work with than my Pat McGrath mattes. I genuinely do. I mean, this is just, and there's such unique colors in here. Like, well, Marvel is gorgeous. I mean, again, I'm like, give me everything rose gold, but Fire Butts is so pretty. It's almost like, it's a gold, but it almost has like some green in there. This Scarab shade is, I mean, one of my favorite eyeshadow colors, probably of all time, like of all time that I have ever used. Let me just stop, okay? It's absolutely perfect. The next category are your favorite drugstore palettes. So right off the bat, I'm just gonna be honest with you, I don't have a ton of drugstore palettes. I don't find that, and I'm talking about like the traditional drugstore, like Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, Target. Like I know some people consider ColourPop to be drugstore, which I totally get because of the price, but you can't just like walk into a drugstore and get ColourPop. So I did not include ColourPop in this. So let's just get into it. I know this is kind of cheating. I have two palettes from the same brand, but if I'm being honest with you, these are truly some of the absolute best shadows at the drugstore, some of my absolute favorite shadows to wear and to use, and you have to know that it's it's my Flower Beauty palettes. I talk about these all the time. I mean, particularly this one. I know I've mentioned this before, but legit every time I wear this palette, somebody like compliments me on my eye look. Somebody asks me what it is. Whenever this palette goes on sale, like I send the link to people who have asked me about it before. So, I mean, this is just like, these are the most beautiful, foiled, wet looking, like high performing shimmers that I own. Like, they're so, so beautiful. This color, Wild, is, again, I mean, probably one of my favorite eyeshadows that I own. I know I swatched that in a super awkward place there, but hopefully you can see that. I don't like, its beauty is probably not going to be captured on this phone and in this lighting. I apologize, but love it. I mean, this olive green is stunning, stunning, and it looks so beautiful on like brown hazel eyes. I love it. It's just good. It's just good, you guys. And then by that same token, the Desert Lights, this is like the newer one that came out just a few months ago. I didn't even know that they were coming out with this. I just was like scrolling the Ulta site and I saw this and I snatched it immediately. Obviously, totally different vibe. You know, you have like just very gold, pink, rose gold. This shade is lovely. It's still a shimmer. It's like a plummy brown, but look at that. Look at the saturation. I barely put my finger in there and that was one swipe. You guys, I mean, these shadows are no joke, but that shadow works awesome as like a blending shade. When I use this palette, I always use this deeper color in my outer corner to like deepen things up, and it works beautifully. I mean, it works like a matte. So just like, I literally cannot recommend these palettes enough. I can't. Like, and they're 20 bucks. They're always, they're like 18 or 19 bucks. Flower Beauty is always running a sale too. I get text messages from them all the time. Shit is always like 30, 40% off. So, you know, I mean, they're permanent to their collection. So just wait it out. Wait it out. Get it on a good sale. If you're looking for like a gift for somebody for Christmas, this would fit perfectly in a little stocking. It's, you know, depending on whatever color story you think somebody would like. They're gorgeous. And then the last drugstore palette is my Revlon So Fierce Quad. I feel like I don't talk about this enough. And I don't feel like people, period, talk about this enough. So Revlon came out with a whole line of these earlier this year. And I had this and one other one that I have since decluttered, mainly because one of the shadows broke and it was just like a total pain in the ass to use after that. And plus it was a color story that just didn't do a lot for me. But this is gorgeous. And now I will say, probably for most of us, this is not going to be like a standalone palette. It's not going to be like a comprehensive palette that you can create a whole look with. I like creating looks with this. There's not really like a true matte in this palette, but this shade here, this first one, I don't think the shades have names. Yeah, just the quad has a name. But this is a really beautiful, like creamy, you're probably not even going to be able to see a whole lot of it on my skin tone. Like that's how light it is, but it really is gorgeous all over your lid. It has a beautiful like sheen to it. If you wanted to do that just all over your lid, and then a really punchy like liner or a little bit of that in your outer corner. You could even swipe this. Now this shade here is special. Like this shade is honestly why I'm hanging on to the whole quad. I mean, I love the quad, but like this is one of the most gorgeous, like true drugstore, like duochrome shades I've ever seen. And let me just swatch it for you. It's, hopefully you can see that. I mean, look at that. I never know how well things are captured here on camera and under these lights, but it's absolutely gorgeous. Like there's some purple and some like some pink tones in there. It's so lovely. I think it's such a nice compliment to this palette. Like I said, they came out with a ton of these. I think there was like 5 or 6 in total. So go check them out. you know, again, if you like, the quality on these is nice, you know, they're not, is it the best eyeshadow formula out there? No, no, it's not, but you can definitely create like some fun looks with this. The next category are my favorite luxury palettes. Now, again, if I'm being frank with you, I really don't own that many luxury palettes. Okay, so the first one is NARS considered luxury? Like, I really don't know. Are they? I mean, I don't know. Somebody tell me. But my NARS Summer Solstice palette, I love this little guy, this 9-pan. I got this summer when it came out. Now look, the price tag on this felt luxury. I'm gonna tell you that. So that's why in my mind, I feel like it's luxury. This little thing was expensive, you guys, but I will say that I really enjoy the formula of NARS shadows. I don't know like if people really talk about it a whole lot, but this was so easy to use. Like the mattes in this were gorgeous, pigmented, easy to blend. The shimmers, there is kind of a variety of shimmers in this. You have like your traditional shimmers, but then this shade here is a little bit more textured and almost like a, try to live swatch these, almost like kind of a toppery shade, you know, but that's kind of more of your traditional shimmery shimmer, but it's just lovely. I mean, it's completely warm toned, which I love a warm toned to neutral palette, but love this, absolutely love this. I wanted their holiday palette so bad, that bijou palette they came out with, and by the time I went to buy it, I was too late. It's like sold out everywhere. If anybody knows someplace that's still selling it, that's not at like a ridiculous markup, let me know, because I want that palette so bad. Next should come as no surprise, it's my Natasha Denona Retro. This bitch here, okay, so stunning. I know I mentioned this like when I had it in my stash and when I've used it before. This is a palette that I just, when it first came out, I wasn't like particularly excited about it. I remember being like, it's pretty, like it's pretty, but you know, the more I saw people use it and the more I saw the quality and the more I saw the looks that were being done with it, I had to get it. And it is, admittedly, like these tones are not something that I typically gravitate towards. Like I enjoy a mauve and a pink, but it's not something that I'm reaching for on a daily basis. Now this palette is definitely something I would reach for on a daily basis. I don't know, just something about like the tones. There's a good amount of depth in here, like with the mattes. And I love the formula. I love the formula of her shadows. I really think that like this palette made me fall completely in love with Natasha Denona's formula. This palette is, I think, absolutely deserving of all the hype it got this year. And then lastly, this might be an unpopular opinion, but my Pat McGrath holiday palette from last year is one of my favorite palettes. Like it truly is. She's gorge. She's so gorgeous. I know you've seen it. I think honestly, I would declutter some of my bigger like mothership palettes before I would ever declutter this. There's just something about the tones in this palette that look like, I just love the way they look on me. I love the way these tones look on my skin, my eyes, like with my hair. I feel like so beautiful every time I use this palette. I know that everybody's big gripe is about the mattes really in this palette. I know there's not a ton of variety with the mattes. I mean, you do have like a light, a mid, and a deep matte, but they're all very pink, you know, pink, mauve, purple leaning. So I get it. Like, I get that gripe, but I personally like that. And I love, love, love this palette. Next is a category that Alejandra called mainstream. And the way that she described this is just like, think about somebody in your life who is not obsessed with YouTube, like who doesn't watch 13 hours of YouTube a day. Like, what brands that they would know, like stuff they would be familiar with. So for me, the first one that came to mind was Anastasia, of course, and one of my favorite Anastasia palettes, like of all time, is my Norvina, the original Norvina. Everybody knows the story behind this. I've said it a fucking million times on my channel, but I panned almost this entire palette when it first came out. I had to rebuy it. I absolutely love it. This rose gold shade is, I think, the perfect rose gold. It is one of my favorite shadows in my entire collection. I just love this palette. I absolutely love it. I know there's not a ton of depth with the mattes, but it's deep enough for me. I love it. Like, all the shimmers are amazing. Just love it. It will forever be one of my favorites. Then I decided to include ColourPop in this category because I do feel like everybody knows about ColourPop. They just do. So I chose my Raw Beauty Christie at Forest Sight ColourPop palette. This palette is just so lovely. It's so lovely, and I feel like because of how small it is and like where it sits in my drawer, I forget about it. And actually, I feel that way about a lot of my palettes. Like, when I was picking these palettes out, it made me kind of sad because I just realized that it's so hard to give palettes like the proper love that they deserve when you have 75 of them. Like, that's just the truth. That is just the truth. It is, I don't give a lot of my palettes enough love and enough shine, and that's just because I have so fucking many of them, okay? But I used the crap out of this palette when it came out. Like, I used this all the time. I just look at, like, the packaging is perfect. Just everything about it I loved. I mean, I actually love that there's no mirror. I don't need a mirror in all of my palettes, but this color story is absolutely gorgeous to me. I was kind of surprised by how much I liked this. I'm not a person who goes gaga for matte eyeshadow. I'm just not. Like, if I'm gonna buy a palette, it's because of the shimmers in it, and there's only 2 shimmers in this. But both of these shimmers work so well with everything in here. Like, the more neutral mattes here, like this whole row, like this and this one, they're just perfect. Like, they're perfect. The formula is amazing. And I'm actually not even a person that's like in love with ColourPop's formula, but this is good. Like, it's good. And these colors are just, again, such a nice way to play with color if you just want a little bit of like green or blue on your outer corner, if you just want a little bit on your lower lash line. It's just, I love this palette. And then lastly, I feel like this is a brand that people sleep on, or maybe people just don't talk about it like they used to. Maybe 8 years ago. Well, I know 7 or 8 years ago, people were talking about this brand like crazy, but it's Lorac. Like, I had the Lorac Pro palette, the original Pro palette, for the longest time. That's another palette that I pretty much panned the entire thing. Like, I wore that palette nonstop. I didn't get into like their mega palettes. I never got those. I also didn't get into that, like the second palette they came out with, the cool toned one. I did not get into that, but people love those. People love those. And this is the Fairy Tale Forest. This is, I think this is a new palette, right? I think this just came out, but this is lovely. Like, this is lovely. I personally really enjoy the Lorac formula. The mattes are so smooth. They're so smooth. They're so easy to blend. They're buildable. I just love this. And all of the shimmers in here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, you have 10 shimmers. So a good deal of this palette is shimmers. And they are just beautiful. Like, there's duochromes, there's texture in here. Like, they're just so pretty. How pretty is that? It's like a pink gold shift, and then this gorgeous olive green. I have fun every time I use this palette. I love it. I love the looks I come up with. I just love Lorac. I love Lorac. I've actually been tempted to buy like the original Lorac Pro palette in years past, like to buy it again and use it, but I haven't. But I'm super glad that I picked this up. I think they came out with this and several other like 6 pans. I think they're 6 pans, which all looked really gorgeous too. So definitely recommend checking out Lorac. The next palette is your favorite influencer collabs. I don't think any of these are gonna come as a surprise to you. Okay, obviously Jackie Aina and ABH, you guys. I mean, has there been a better collab than this? Like, really? Has there been a better collab than this? Like, I don't think so, personally. Jackie did this. Jackie did this. I feel like you're not gonna get a look that you don't like with this palette. You're just not. I never have. I love every single look I've gotten with this palette. There are such beautiful neutrals in here, and then such like beautiful pops of color too. The pinks, the purple, the red, like it's literally perfect. Like I will never, okay, let me not say never. I can't imagine a situation, or I can't imagine myself ever wanting to get rid of this. I can't. The next collab that I love, that again, I feel like I just don't talk about enough or don't like show myself using enough, is my XO Native palette. XO Beauty is a brand that was started by Shan XO. She's an Australian, actually I think she's a New Zealander YouTuber, but she is somebody that I have been watching since like the dawn of time. It feels like, but this is gorgeous. First of all, like the packaging is so cute. So cute. And this is a palette that is totally dedicated to like the native flora and fauna of New Zealand. So super cute. I know this inner packaging is kind of blinding, and I hope it doesn't wash out the colors too much, but this palette is beautiful, beautiful. So lots of like, you have some cooler toned shades. Most of the mattes in this palette are pretty neutral leaning, I find, which I love, but everything just works really well together. Again, like an absolutely gorgeous olive green in here. There's another sort of like duochrome topper shade. There's a lovely like champagne-y shade. I'm just gonna swatch these for you because I really do love the shimmers in this palette. I just love the whole palette, period. But love it, love it. This is a palette that every time I sit down and like, look at this shade. It's so pretty. It's like again, it's more of like a topper shade, but it has like, it's just so pretty. It's like wet looking. I just love it. This is a palette that every time I sit down to play with it and come up with a look, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Like I have fun. I am satisfied with every look I get out of this. Really enjoy it. And then lastly, look, I'm just gonna like show this to you. I'm not gonna talk about it too much, okay? It's the palette everybody loves to hate. It's the palette that I still am obsessed with. Like, to this day, it's just gorgeous, okay? It's gorgeous. The quality is gorgeous. I get like some of my most favorite looks that I've ever done, I have gotten with this palette. It's just really good, okay? The next category are my favorite neutral palettes. This was really hard because honestly, I feel like in the last year and a half, my makeup tastes have kind of changed. Like, I was never really like big into colorful looks. Like, very rarely do I do a super bold, bright, colorful look, like all over my lid, my lower lash line, like a cut crease. It's just not something that I do. It's not something that I feel like looks good on me. Like, I don't feel my most confident in a look like that. I mean, it's gorgeous. I love watching people create those kind of looks. It's just not something that particularly for me I enjoy. And I feel like even more so over the last year, I've kind of gravitated like away from that. I have really, really just loved neutrals. So it was kind of hard to pick my three favorites, but this is like the first three that came to mind. My Doll 10 Doll Squad palette. This is in my Shop My Stash right now. I love this palette, you guys. I just do. I think it's so gorgeous. There's only 4 shimmers in here, but again, I just feel like the tones of the shimmers work really well with all the mattes. Everything goes well together. This is another palette that I feel like every time I wear it, people like compliment my eyes. It's so easy to use, like this formula. I literally just became aware of Doll 10 Beauty like within the last few months. I don't think it's a new brand. I don't know if it's a new brand, but I just became aware of it, and I absolutely love this eyeshadow palette. You do have some warm tones, but you do have like some cooler leaning shades here, browns, mauves, so you do have a little bit of a variety. I just love it. Can't say enough good things about it. This is another palette that I'm not going to talk about too much, but the Patrick Ta Major Dimension eyeshadow palette. I mean, this is just a palette that kind of like took us by storm this year, didn't it? It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. It is a perfect warm toned dream. The cream shadows in here work beautifully. I love all of the shimmers. I mean, the only shades that I could like probably do without, I'm not a big fan of like this sequin shade, even like this shade right here, like the lighter tone sequin shade. Just not my favorite, but everything else I love. Like, I love this palette. Is a smash hit. And then lastly, this is one of my favorite neutral palettes that, you know, again, common theme, I don't give enough love to, but my Juvia's Place Warrior palette, so gorgeous, you guys. You have your light toned matte, you have a mid-tone, you have a deepening matte, and then all of the other shimmers. Ugh, I just like, I want to like take my makeup off and put this on as I'm looking at it. It's so absolutely gorgeous. If you've used the Juvia's formula, you know that it's lovely. It really is. You will be able to create some very lovely, like if you wanted to do something just super light, like set your lid with this, put something light all over, but you could definitely go like full smoky. You could use these, you could use a deeper shimmer here. I mean, I love it. And Juvia's artwork is just, it's so captivating. Like, I love all their palette artwork. And then the last couple palettes, so just did neutrals. So now my favorite colorful color stories. Again, this was like, I don't use these that often because I just, you know, don't use color that often, like I just said. But if I am feeling some color, I do think about this palette quite a bit. The Blueberry Muffin palette. I have not used this for a while, but this is another palette that when I use it, I love the looks I get. Like, I have done all blue looks with this palette before, and blue is a shade that I just don't gravitate towards. But this is so friendly. Like, this is such a friendly blue. Nothing is like too bright. But BH formula is just like, you know, BH is another brand that I feel like has just taken the makeup world by storm this past year. I mean, they've been around forever. Like, I had BH palettes 7 years ago, but the quality was not what it is in the palettes that they're coming out with lately. It just wasn't. There's versatility here. BH also runs sales a lot. These palettes are already super affordable. So this is just like a really fun, safe way to use blue eyeshadow. Like, if you do want to experiment with that. Next is another Juvia's Place palette, my Magic Mini. This is probably, again, I mean, just look at the artwork. It's so beautiful. This is probably one of the most colorful palettes I have in my collection, but it's one of my favorites. Like, this is, again, a palette that I open and I look at and I'm so inspired. Like, I'm so drawn to this green color. This green color looks absolutely gorgeous on my eyes, like just packed all over my lid. These shades here, like these cooler toned, like silvery blues, are gorgeous. This color, Faso, is like it's such a pretty purple. I've used this many times before. It's gorgeous. This is, again, it's just such a fun way to play with color. Juvia's Place is an affordable brand, so if you don't want to spend a ton of money on like a high-end colorful palette, just opt for something like this. I mean, these are good quality, super saturated, beautiful jewel tones. Like, I love this palette. And then lastly, this is kind of a mixture of neutral and color, but I had to include it because I really have loved every time I've used this palette. It's a newer palette to my collection, but my Huda Mercury Retrograde, you guys, this palette is so pretty. Look at this. Oh my gosh, come on. Gorgeous, gorgeous, right? I mean, you have like these beautiful teals, blues, purples, but you also have just absolutely stunning like neutral tones here. You could create such a beautiful champagne eye. I mean, you do have some depth some stuff to deepen up with, but I really like this palette. Heard really good things about the Naughty palette too, if you did want just more of an absolutely neutral palette. I've heard good things about that too. And then lastly, so this is the category that I just added. You know, I don't have big palettes I'm going to talk about, so I just included my favorite small palettes. So first we have the Natasha Denona Mini Zendo. You guys, I love this so much more than the big Zendo, which I also have. But this color story, I just love. Like, it's only 5 shades, but I do feel like there's a lot I can do with this. All of the shimmers are beautiful. This is like it looks brown probably just looking at it in the pan, but there's definitely like some maroon, like some plum in there. I've used that as like a matte before, again in my outer corner as a deepening shade. It's just lovely. It really is. I love the formula in this. It's a great little 5-pan palette there. This is the Pat McGrath Celestial Divinity Luxe Quad in Interstellar Icon. I know that this looks really similar to one of the holiday quads she came out with this year, but I personally think that this is more beautiful. First of all, like this shade here, both of these actually, I mean, they must be swatched. These 2 shades alone are worth me keeping this palette, but I don't know why I closed that. But so there's the blue, which honestly has like a little bit of purple in there too. And then, I mean, look at those. So beautiful. And there's something about that blue, like there's some tones in there that work so well with this maroon, this brown. I mean, I like this quad better than I like some of my big Mothership palettes. It's perfect. It's perfect. And then I have to mention my DJ's Unique Boutique quad. This is the orange brown quad, and the component is sold separately. It was only like $5, and you can actually take the shades out and customize a little quad. She sells a bunch of single shadows now. I'm gonna link her store down below. She also has a YouTube channel, Just Peachy D. I adore her. Go check her out. She started getting into more vlogs, which I love. But I love this quad, this orange brown quad. I just think it's such a perfect, cute little condensed color story. This is a very textured shimmer. I think it's called Orange Sherbet. I don't want to take out the thing. I'm pretty sure it's called Orange Sherbet, but it's textured. Definitely need like a glitter glue to set it down. This shade is stunning. Like, it just looks cranberry in the palette, but it has like a copper, orange, like gold shift to it. It's gorgeous. Swept all over your lid. The mattes work beautifully. I just really enjoy using this every time I do. And I had to mention DJ. She has a lot of, like I said, a lot of singles. I think her holiday palette is back up for sale, The Reason. And she has a lot of other stuff too. She's got like lip products, cheek products. She sells brushes. Her brushes are some of my favorite brushes. Super affordable. Yeah, just go check her out. But that's it. That concludes my top 3 palettes in however many categories that was. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you have done a video like this, I would love to see it. I love watching videos like this. Like I said, I love talking about eyeshadow, but give me a like if you enjoyed this video, even in the slightest way. It truly, truly means a lot. I know I say that all the time, but it does mean a lot to me. Subscribe. I would love to have you stick around for some more content. But until that happens, in the meantime, take care of yourselves and take care of each other, beauties.